Welcome back to the GOAT District, where the sharpest minds sharpen each other. Tonight, we're diving into 8 must-answer questions to help you dominate your 2025 draft rooms. We've got a special guest, high-stakes grinder, Mason Spain, joining Dan and myself to break it all down. Smash the like button, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's get.
GOAT District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? We are back in the district, and I'm with my partner in crime, Dan Williamson. You know him as the Overhyped Sleeper. I'm JD at Draft Room Baller, and we got a special one tonight, guys. We're going to look at 8 crucial parts of the draft, crucial situations, decisions that you have to make that can make or break your drafts in 2025. And to do that with us, we've got a high-stakes grinder. He's Mason Spain. He brings real-world, high-volume drafting experience to every conversation. Dan and I chat with this guy in the DMs. He's been a fan of the GOAT District. We meet him in the draft rooms, in the high-stakes streets, and we had to bring him on. He's an avid OKC fan, as you could see, so congrats to him. He'll tell us about the parade he attended today. He's a 2023 FFPC main event finalist. He's gone deep in multiple tournaments, including Best Ball Mania and Drafters main events. He competes on the FFPC, Underdog, Drafters. Mason, welcome to the GOAT District, brother.
Thank you for having me. I'm pumped up.
Yeah, we're pumped to have you, man. We got a big show today. I know the chat is live right now. We've got Steve in the house. We've got Nick Constantino, the Harry Snowman, of course, Peanut Punch. Appreciate you guys in the chat. Make sure you're dropping questions all night. Keep it live. We're going to keep this thing, we're going to go deep, Dan, in this. Like I said, we're going to go all over the draft board, looking at spots that are crucial to the 2025 drafts. How are you feeling about it? You pumped tonight?
I'm excited, yes. I've been looking forward to this ever since you said you had Mason lined up, because he and I have talked a lot off air and backstage and everything else, and now I finally get a chance to talk to him live, so let's go. Yeah,
for sure. Let's get right into it. There's a lot to talk about. We're going to start when we look at draft boards. I know all of us use Fantasy Mojo to get our ADPs. If you're not already signed up, fantasymojo.com, even if you're not on the FFPC, just to know what the sharpest minds, the sharpest games, in fantasy are doing ADP wise. And even since January, Dan, there's a tier kind of after those top 3 receivers and that top tier running backs that include Malik Nabers, Puka Nacua, Brian Thomas Jr., ASB, and Nico Collins. So I want to know, Mason, which one of those is your favorite, and which one of those are you maybe putting at the back when it comes to prioritizing these receivers, especially in the back end at the 1-2 turn of drafts these days?
I'm kind of out on ARSB.
Okay, why?
Between the offensive coordinator change in Detroit, I feel like we've seen his ceiling. I think ARSB is great but I don't think we see a potential of him challenging Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Malik Nabers, and those guys. I think that there's guys that go behind ARSB that can challenge to be in that top tier of wide receivers. With Sam Laporta due for a bounce back year, Jamison Williams is still getting better as he stays in the league. I just don't see ARSB outperforming his ADP. So I don't feel like I'm ever going to take him in the first round and feel like I got a great value there. And I know a lot of people love him, but I think he'd have to fall into the early second round for me to feel comfortable taking him as opposed to some of those other guys.
Dan, apart from his rookie season, the last 3 seasons, he's been the wide receiver 10 and the wide receiver 4 back-to-back when you're looking at fantasy points per game. So he does bring a consistency. He is part of a powerful offense now in Detroit. It's even surprising to say that out loud after what we saw for many years out there in Detroit. But how do you feel about ASB? Is he someone you're drafting? Where do you kind of prioritize him in this tier of receivers?
Yeah, I'm with Mason. He's at the back end of this tier for me, and pretty much for the same reasons. I mean, I'm never disappointed to get ARSB, but on the other hand, I prioritize all the other guys, Nabers, Nacua, BTJ, and Collins ahead of him, just because I do think that they have the ability to rise up and become like the wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2. I think there's nothing to sneeze at with wide receiver 4, which Amon-Ra St. Brown has been the last 2 years. But I do think that is kind of a ceiling, and the offense is getting more diverse. We did lose the offensive coordinator, as Mason said. So, yeah, for all those reasons, I'm just not as excited about taking him as the others.
Yeah, I mean, there's Amon-Ra with J-Dubs that we talked about. I think when you're looking at these guys, we're pretty much nitpicking. These guys are all pretty much studs. You're happy to get them as a wide receiver 1, especially if one of them falls, and get them as getting one of them as a wide receiver 2. For me, what I'm looking at is who's going to get the most target, who's got more to fight with when it comes to those targets. So my favorite guy of all these guys is Malik Nabers right now. I don't know where you are, Mason. Is he someone that you're drafting often right now, or who's your favorite guy out of this tier?
My favorite guys are Nico Collins and Brian Thomas for sure. They're awesome. They're just awesome wide receivers, and I feel like we haven't seen the best out of them yet. It's only going to get better. Malik Nabers is better than both of them. He also plays for the Giants. And I'm sorry, there's just something that feels gross about drafting the Giants wide receiver crews. And it feels weird to say that we have a Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase level talent that plays for the Giants. If he didn't play for the Giants, we would not be talking him in this tier. We'd be talking about him with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. So I love Malik Nabers. If he comes to me in the draft, I will feel great about him. I just wish they had a better quarterback.
Dart, man. Dart's coming. Come on. Dan, who do you like most out of this? And are you kind of hesitant when it comes to Nabers as well, just because of the franchise he plays for?
I'm probably not quite as hesitant. I mean, he showed last year that he's pretty well quarterback proof. He's just a dog, and he showed that through and through. So I'll take him. I do think he has wide receiver 1 overall upside, along with Nacua, Brian Thomas Jr., Nico Collins. So, what I like about him is that he's going to get basically the target load of an ARSB, but he's going to get those targets further downfield, and probably be able to do a little bit more with them. So just love that combination. But really, all these guys, you have a hard time talking me out of them. It's tough to draft a running back when any of these guys is available.
Now, speaking of running backs, let's shift a little to a couple players that I know, again, just drafting from early in the year, January, February, and watching these two players ascend up ADP boards. When we look at CMC and Rashee Rice, Mason, obviously CMC is coming off injuries. He's someone I was avoiding coming into last year just for that fear, the amount of volume he took. the injury, fear, which is not something I usually incorporate too much into, avoids and that kind of thing. But it's hard not to with the amount of volume that we saw with CMC. He's coming off of those 3 different injuries, but he's looking pretty healthy from what we can see this offseason. And with that news and those updates, we've seen him move up the ADP board. On the other hand, you've got Rashee Rice. You've got an injury situation in KC. You've got high speed, craziness down the highways in KC. So kind of a double factor when it comes to reasons to hesitate on a player like that. Do you like these guys at their new ADP? Like last I checked, Rashee Rice is now, which is crazy. I've seen him move up into middle to beginning of the second round. And then CMC, when I look at Mojo right now, he's looking like he's at the beginning of the third, but I've seen him go in the middle and beginning of the second. So he's kind of in that range, second into the third. And then CMC now is creeping into the back end of the first, which I think, a lot of us saw coming, just the way things are progressing and how these ADPs are moving. But are you drafting these guys at their new price? Are they guys that you were drafting earlier in the offseason trying to take advantage of that value?
I don't draft CMC. I just don't.
Okay.
He's got an open spot on the San Francisco 49ers injured reserve list before week 5 or 6, in my opinion. And there's no fantasy doctor out there that is well respected that's going to talk me out of that notion. He's had calf injuries, and I don't think they're going to go away. And the more they expect him to be explosive, the more likely his Achilles will be to pop someday. That's my opinion. And I have talked to nothing but people who disagree with me on that, but apparently that is the hill I'm going to die on. Now, Rashee Rice is opposite. I'll draft him wherever he goes. If we weren't talking about a guy who drove too fast and got in bar fights, that combination with him and Patrick Mahomes, he's better than Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's better than Ladd McConkey. I will take Rice over Jalen Hurts to A.J. Brown any day of the week. If we weren't talking about all these other issues with Rashee Rice, we're not worried about his mid-second round ADP. We'd be wondering why he's not in the first round. He's that good. Yes, you do have the risk involved. That's why his ADP's bumped down. But I'll take that discount because I don't feel like his ADP's skyrocketing. I just think it's inching back to where it should be if he didn't have all these issues.
So basically he'd be in the tier of receivers that we just talked about is what I'm hearing. And maybe he ends up. Do you think
Absolutely.
Think he gets there?
I have more confidence of his return from injury than CMC's. Obviously that will be a factor. He has not been indicted yet. And if he were to be indicted during training camp, chances are legally he'll get continuances. They'll push stuff out. I don't think he's going to have a resolution in his court cases till after the season. That's just an opinion. I mean, there's sources on Twitter to get better information than from me, but I just have a feeling that Rashee Rice will not be suspended this year, and I think he is as good as Brian Thomas Jr. and Nico Collins, who are both awesome. If you can start a draft with Puka Nacua and then get Rashee Rice in the second round, what a beginning.
Yeah, I think anytime you can get 2 of those guys in that top tier, and if we're saying Rashee Rice maybe belongs there, he's kind of a cheat code in a way that, if he does fall to you, let's say middle of the second, it kind of gives you that double tap on receiver and you get 2 pretty big studs. Dan, how are your thoughts? I know you and I drafted CMC to start off a 125 FFPC BBT. Where are you on him and on the KC receiver?
Yeah, so with CMC, I'm mostly treading pretty lightly. Crazy enough, I might be a little bit more bullish on CMC than Saquon, who just came off of a huge number of touches. And, that definitely worries me. However, with CMC right now where his price is, I'm not going to go too heavy at this time because I don't need to. I know I'm going to be doing a lot of drafting on a lot of high-stakes leagues right around the very end of August, very beginning of September, and I can afford to wait and see, how he's doing health-wise, how everything's looking. Because right now, we've got a long time to go before the season starts. So, and how much higher can he go? He's already in the back end of the first round. I don't see him getting higher than the middle of the first round. So I think he can only bump up a couple spots. So I'm not that worried about, missing out on a good price or anything like that. And I think that just by waiting, I can still get my exposure wherever I want it to be, whether that's low or high. I doubt it would be anything higher than even weight, though, just because of the injury concerns. But, he is coming off of a year where he got light usage. He is an injury concern, as Mason said. But I guess I'm a little bit less certain that the injury is going to necessarily happen this year. I'm willing to go with him at his price if everything's looking good at the end of the offseason here. As far as Rashee Rice, I've kind of hit pause on him a little bit because you know what? I got a lot of Rashee earlier in draft season. And, for that reason, I'm already overweight on him. And I can just afford to kind of sit back and wait and see where things are settling out. If he's dropping off of his current ADP, I'll probably grab him. But I don't feel like I have to go out there and just, take him just to be taking him. I do think I have some concerns about Xavier Worthy coming on at the end of last year. The offense is going to change a little bit. Jalen Royals also, he shouldn't be any danger to Rashee Rice this year, but I think he could be a looming concern, especially if they're concerned about Rice's character in Kansas City. They might just prefer to go, towards Royals if Royals is as good. I think what makes Rashee Rice really good is Patrick Mahomes. As far as, like what his actual talent level is, I think it's it's good, but it's not great. So those are the guys I'm not going to push up too far.
Yeah, I'm Rashee Rice. I guess the thing that kind of puts a ceiling, I guess, or cap on my ownership percentages is just I love Xavier Worthy. I love what I saw at the end of the season last year. I think he's really worked in a role, especially in the playoffs. They leaned on him and leading into the playoffs. Yes, Rashee Rice comes back, but I think this offense is going to have to throw the ball more. They've got a pretty tough schedule from what I've seen. They've, the backfield is the backfield. Pacheco, you hope that he's back. Like as a fantasy player, you hope that he's back from that broken leg and he's not as sluggish as he looked last year where they were maybe leaning on Kareem Hunt more often than none. But Kelsey's coming back, and as much as he's talking like he wants to get back, at the level he was at, let's face it, he's on the back end of his career. But again, with Patrick Mahomes, maybe we don't see, the 5,000 yards or whatever that we saw earlier in his career. But I do think this offense is going to have to throw the ball more and not necessarily skimper their way through wins like they've done the past couple of years. But we'll see. I mean, also the division is getting better. You know what I mean? So they're going to have to put more points, in my opinion. When Vegas brings in some weapons, Chargers are looking like they're ramping up the offense. So for me, I don't shy away from the offense. I think that, obviously you're not avoiding either of these receivers when it comes to the KC guys. When it comes to CMC, I'm not completely fading him. I obviously want some shares of him. The higher he gets up, though, the harder it's going to be for me to click. Like if he actually gets into that top tier running backs with the Bijans, the Saquons, and the Jahmyr Gibbs, then it's going to be a little harder for me. With those three, I like to spread the love, but maybe like Gianti, I feel like Gianti is and we'll talk about, we're going to transition to the rookie running backs here. But problem that I have with Gianti is you're drafting him at his ceiling. So I'm just not going heavy when it comes to my ownership. And I think that'll probably be the same with CMC. Not completely avoiding him. Obviously want some shares and some in my portfolio, but not someone I'm going to be smashing every opportunity I can. So let's transition to these rookie running backs. And, talking about Gianti, I think, we've been hearing about Ashton Gianti for months now. But Mason, how about the next 4 rookie running backs? I feel like leading up to the NFL draft, I know I was drafting a lot of them in especially in best ball drafts. Now we know where they landed. We're getting some idea of their situations. I mean, some are still a little blurry, but where are you? How do you rank these 4 running backs when we look at Hampton, Henderson, Judkins, and Caleb Johnson?
I love all four of them. I really loved all of them coming out of college and before the NFL draft. And there's just something that feels a little bit gross about all of them at their ADPs. Caleb Johnson was probably my favorite coming out of college. I just love the way he ran in college. And then he goes to, Pittsburgh, where it makes you wonder, is he as good as Najee Harris or not? I mean, because that's the role he's getting. We know Jaylen Warren will still get the passing down work. Maybe Caleb impresses, catches some balls, and takes over the whole backfield, but I mean, it's Arthur Smith. I like Travion Henderson much better than Judkins coming out of Ohio State. But Judkins seems to have the prime spot. So here I am drafting the guy I didn't like as much over the guy I liked better, because I look at Henderson in New England and I think to myself, Ramondre Stevenson's not going away. I mean, I know people aren't real high in him right now, but he's an NFL football player that doesn't want to lose his job in training camp to a rookie. So he's not going away. So it's hard for me to get real hyped about Henderson. Same thing with Hampton. I love Hampton. I love his spot in the Chargers. But they didn't sign Najee Harris to get 3 touches per game. Najee Harris is going to play. And the first time Omarion Hampton fumbles a ball as a rookie, he's going to sit on a bench. There's just things that scare me about all of them. I love them all. It just, when they're up in the draft, I find myself taking guys like James Conner, Joe Mixon, Kenneth Watt. There's so many other guys around those ADPs I end up taking. David Montgomery, Chuba Hubbard. I can get Aaron Jones, Isaiah Pacheco, or Tony Pollard a full round later than all of them. And I have more faith in what I can actually expect from them. They may not have as high of a ceiling, but I feel like for where I'm drafting them and what I'm expecting them, I'm going to get my money's worth at that ADP. And it's not so risky because I'm not sure about any of their situations and I'm not comfortable with it.
Are you maybe, just quickly, when it comes to like Judkins and even Caleb, are you maybe more likely to go a bit farther down the board and grab like a Jaylen Warren or a Samson or even a Jerome Ford just to get some of those pieces or some of that offense? Or are you avoiding it just altogether once you pass those top guys?
If I'm going to draft a Cleveland Brown running back, his name's going to be Quinshon Judkins. I love him and I love his situation. I'm not as worried about Jerome Ford as I am Najee Harris or Ramondre Stevenson. But he's an NFL football player that did do okay for them, that doesn't want to lose his job. He's going to fight for that job, even though the fantasy world thinks he's toast. He's going to fight for that job in training camp. And so I will draft Quinshon Judkins because there's enough people out there that are scared to tap on the rookie. And if he falls in ADP, if I draft Quinshon Judkins, I do feel good about it. I wish I could feel as good about the rest. And that also includes RJ Harvey. I can't click on him and feel great about it either. Everybody wants to sell me on Sean Payton. My attitude is if Drew Brees isn't Sean Payton's quarterback, I'm not as high on his schemes. And so that's my attitude. So
Dan, where are you at on these 4 rookies? And you can even include RJ in there. I know RJ's kind of creeped up in that range, especially in rookie drafts.
Mason, didn't you hear that Bo Nix is the new Drew Brees? I mean,
because he plays for Sean Payton,
right?
People think his next draft pick. Yeah.
No, I mean, I actually do like Nix. I think he's a good quarterback. I was on him immediately coming out before he even got drafted. I thought wherever he goes, he'll probably do all right. And when he went to Peyton, I thought that was like the perfect place for him. But before we chase that rabbit too far, getting back to those running backs, I'll pound the table for Henderson. I love the spot. I love where he's at as far as playing for Josh McDaniels, who always makes the most out of his receiving backs. I mean, we've seen some monster seasons out of receiving backs in New England before, when Josh McDaniels was there. And I think he's a really good runner. I think he's a better runner than some of those receiving backs that have had those monster seasons. He's got the speed to get to the house. I mean, he's got the talent. He's got the draft capital. I'm not too worried about Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, I think Ramondre is going to have a role, but I think it's going to be the Henderson show more so sooner rather than later. So I'm getting in on Henderson now. One thing Dynasty has definitely taught me is you want to bet on talent, and if you got that draft capital with it, bet on it early, because it's going to, usually it's going at a discount in redraft, and you want to jump on it, get that discount while you can, because I think next year Hampton's probably going to be a second-round pick. Or Henderson, sorry.
All right, we're going to look at another group of running backs. Before we do, let's just get a word from our friends over at the FFPC, big supporters of the channels, and we'll be right back after this.
This is the main event draft season.
A main event team on FFPC, $2,000 entry team. Grand prize of $1 million.
I'm looking for that $1 million top prize.
Main event season is in full swing.
If you're not already signed up to myffpc.com, guys, remember to use the code DRBALLER, DRBALER, and you will get $25 off your first team once you make your first deposit. And guys, remember to smash that like button. If you're watching right now, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you smash the like button. A couple small things you can do to help the channel and help us keep bringing on sharp guests like our guest tonight. Mason Spain is here. High stakes grinder on the couch or in a chair anyways, over there in OKC. And we're talking rookie running backs. Dan, I'm going to go to you for this one. Taj Brooks, Jordan James, DJ Giddens, Devin Neal, Woody Marks. I feel like this year's rookie draft is, we know how deep this class is in running backs. And a lot of them have landed in nice spots when it comes to these deeper guys. Are any of these for you avoids, or are you trying to kind of like spread the love as I talked about earlier? Or do you have your favorite in the kind of these late round, when we're talking like redraft and best ball right now?
Yeah, if I have an avoid, probably the closest thing to it would be Devin Neal. Just seeing that Cam Akers signing makes me worried a little bit about what kind of a role Neal might have this year. I think he's an interesting prospect longer term, but it kind of seems like the Saints are going to slow play him a little bit. My favorite of him is DJ Giddens, because I think he's clearly the backup to Jonathan Taylor, running back who seems to miss time every year. I know, JD, you're a big Giddens guy as well, so and you're one of the ones who got me onto him a little bit more. I was a little bit cool on him coming out, but I've definitely warmed up thinking about his situation and everything else. And the other guys, Taj Brooks, Jordan James, Woody Marks, they are all likely third on the pecking order. Could be any of them rising up to second, but right now I think Adams over them. What do you think, Mason?
I think when I look at those late round dart throws,
Oh, you're on mute.
It's one of those things where I'll
No, you're good.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
You're good.
Okay. When it comes to those late round dart throws, I always go into it with the attitude of I'm just kind of stacking up and enough running backs so at least one or two of them hit, and then I will expect that one or two of them will end up being dropped for my first waiver run. So when I look at who I want, I have to think to myself, just who do I have a feeling could jump up to that number 2 position or possibly be a starter? And that's where I like Taj Brooks, because I don't have faith. Zach Moss started the year last year. He was the starter over Chase Brown. He lost the job. I think most of the fantasy community knew that Chase Brown was the better running back going into the year. So I think Taj Brooks has the best chance of being the clear number 2, so that if something, God forbid, happens to Chase Brown, Taj could end up being the man. I don't know if I have a good feeling about that with anybody else. DJ Giddens, I don't even want to say anything. I just want Jonathan Taylor to have a healthy season. He deserves it. But should anything happen to Jonathan Taylor, DJ Giddens is somebody that I'll have a lot of dart throws at because of that possibility. I don't think of anybody else in Indianapolis that excites me. So, they're all dart throws to me. I like them all equally. I'm not going to sit here in July or June and try to tell you. I'd like to see what training camp has to offer before I make those decisions really for redraft.
Yeah, I mean, 1912, shout out to 1912. Appreciate you guys joining. Appreciate all you guys in the chat today. Make sure you're smashing that like, guys. But he's asking about Jarquez. Jarquez, another guy I could have thrown in there easily. It's one of those where I just kind of listed off the names. For me, these are all guys that I can easily use. Like in best ball, if I'm building a stack on one of these offenses, I'm going to be using these guys, especially in the later rounds, because I like to go, I mix up my builds, but I definitely like when my builds include early receivers. But then I'm also looking at kind of depth chart, right? So you mentioned Taj Brooks. You've got Chase Brown there and not much, what's his name? Moss is back from injury, but, it shouldn't be that hard to pass him. Jordan James, I just like having running backs in the San Francisco offense. I'm a big Guerendo guy. We've seen CMC get hurt. We've seen Guerendo have trouble maybe getting suited up. So Jordan James just has a nice situation that he's in, but he's got a few guys to get by. DJ Giddens I really like because, again, there's not much behind Taylor. And as much as I want Taylor to play the whole season, he's missed 3 or 4 games a season already. Devin Neal, I don't know what the deal is. Kendra Miller's a guy I really liked in, as a rookie and going to New Orleans, but he hasn't been able to put it together. Who knows what happens in that offense with a new regime there, a new head coach, but he's another guy that has an opportunity, but there are still 2 guys ahead of him. Woody Marks, now has a bit more of an obstacle with Chubb being signed with Texas. So Jarquez Hunter, obviously Corum maybe didn't necessarily get to flex what he can bring to the team last year, but I feel like when it comes to McShay and the Rams, see, one thing I think that we forget when it comes to running backs is these guys get hurt. These NFL teams don't want to be relying on just 1.5 or one or 2 running backs, especially teams that are wanting to make a run. And the Rams, let's face it, last year were 1 game away from making a run. They don't want to go into a situation where Kyron gets hurt or Corum's not available. They want to make sure they have players that can step up. And Jarquez Hunter is definitely there for that. I don't know if I put him ahead of Corum like most of Fantasyland is right now. I actually really like Corum. I think that he's a guy that can carry the load and really fit in that offense. But again, these are guys that you can add deeper in your drafts and really add depth to your redraft builds and then be able to stack nicely when it comes to those best ball rosters. So sticking to running back, there's 3 backfields right now that we kind of have to solve it in a way, and I feel like the ones that solve those backfields could be the ones that have the key to winning their leagues this season. And 3 of those backfields, we talked a bit about them already. You've got the Chargers with Najee Harris and Omarion Hampton there. They've got, I believe Zeke is also there. You've got the Texans, who have Mixon, Chubb, and Marks. And then you've got the Broncos, who have Harvey, J.K. Dobbins should be there, and then Audrey Estime. Dan, how are you playing these backfields? Are any of them ones that, let's say, you want to have, maybe you're stacking them or you are grabbing the same handcuff on that team when you're building maybe in redraft? How are you approaching them in your different formats, I guess, when you're building and you are drafting some of these backfields?
Yeah, the hardest one for me to buy into has probably been the Chargers. I just don't quite like the price on either Harris or Hampton. I think they're both priced just a little bit too high because I do think that they are going to steal touches from each other. I keep coming back to this mentally and going, Dan, you need to jump in on one or the other of these guys at least. So I've been taking shots at them where they fall a little bit, but I'm underweight on both. I don't love it because I do think there is a lot of value here. I've just got to kind of figure out where it is. So I think I'm kind of waiting for training camp to help me out with that. And, again, I'll have some time to catch up if I'm behind on the, where I want to be on either of those guys as far as rostership percentage. Texans, Mixon is probably my hardest fade of any running back in this, in the entire 2025 draft season. With Chubb and Marks there and the way that Mixon finished off last year, I know he's being priced in as if he's not a bell cow anymore, and I think that's definitely true. But I have a hard time buying in on him. Chubb and Marks are much, much cheaper, and that's where I've been getting my Texans exposure. And then with the Broncos, R.J. Harvey I was very high on early until the other shoe dropped, and that shoe was Dobbins. But I'd been drafting Dobbins all along, so I didn't really mind that too much. And I think Dobbins is still going too cheap. I think he's going to be a bigger part of this offense than most people realize. That's not to say Harvey can't return value where he's at, but it's going to be a lot tougher for him. And, Dobbins is still priced in to the point where if he misses a few games, it's, not a big deal. Estime, I think, is kind of more of insurance if either one of those guys gets hurt. I think if neither one of them gets hurt, Estime is, way, way behind. He's probably not worth ever starting. So give me Dobbins in that backfield.
Mason, where are you at on these three different RB rooms that we're trying to solve?
I love the phrase of solving it because that's what I look at it is. The way I solve the Chargers, Texans, Broncos is I think of worst case scenario. What's the worst case scenario for those backfields? With the Chargers, you have an even split. Najee Harris gets plenty of carries. With the Broncos, like Dan just said, J.K. Dobbins and Harvey split a lot of carries because J.K. is going to have a big role. With the Texans, to me, the worst case scenario is Joe Mixon still gets all the work that Joe Mixon ever gets. He might sit for one or two extra series because he is getting older and they brought in Nick Chubb to spell him a little bit. But I still think Mixon is still going to get over 60% of the running back touches in that running back room. So when I think of the worst case scenario, I'm still comfortable drafting Mixon at his ADP or a little higher. Worst case scenario for Hampton, he's not going to pay off his ADP. Same thing for Harvey. Now, Dobbins and Harris, worst case scenario, if I really do feel they're going to have a role, they not only could pay off their ADP with their every down role, but God forbid an injury, they could be league winners. A lot of people feel that way about Jordan Mason too. They think he's going to have a bigger role with Aaron Jones, and then if Aaron Jones gets hurt, he could be a league winner. I'm not as big on board with Jordan Mason as a lot of other people, but that's the way I look about Najee Harris and J.K. Dobbins.
I think with these three backfields, solving it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to pick one from each or figure out which one's going to dominate the season. I think I look at my seasons when I build my rosters in threes or fours, like either quarters or thirds. And it's like, where in the season am I going to be using these players, whether it's in best ball, redraft, when am I going to be starting these guys? So if I take like an RJ Harvey or a Hampton, I'm not taking them because I think they're going to play for me from week 1 to 17. I'm kind of figuring out in my head, okay, if I take Hampton, I'm paying a high price. Let's say he's going to play the last 2/3 of the season into the playoffs, or maybe from half the season into the playoffs, or maybe even it's just the last third, depending on how I build that team. But you really have to set the expectation on where in the season are these guys going to fit in your builds. Again, whether it's best ball or redraft, you have to kind of come up with that equation. So, I mean, I'm not necessarily avoiding, or I've got all the same concerns you guys have. We love the upside from the rookies, but the vets that are still there, we just saw Dobbins come off of a pretty solid season. We just saw Mixon have a really good start, especially to last season. I mean, I think he's in a boot right now, and maybe there are concerns there. Maybe Chubb comes in and steals a couple goal line touches. Harris, I mean, he's gone 4 seasons, over 1,000 yards, hasn't missed a game. So I think, and he's you know, I think the coaching staff brought him in for a reason. They're going to love a guy like that. And ideally, what these offenses are hoping, or these coaches are probably hoping, is that these guys can complement each other, right? And they're able to play each one in different situations and at different times of the games. That'll be a nightmare for us. But I think for me, it's all about solving when, you know, at what time of the season are these guys going to play into our builds. I'm going to go to 1912's question, because I had a question like this on the show sheet, but I told Dan, like, I think it's too long. We're trying not to do like 2-hour Goat District shows like we were doing, you know, the past whatever years, 7-8 years. So we're going to, let me get that off so we can actually see that properly. But 1912 is a question. Looking at last year's running back class, we talked about Corum, you've got Benson. Are there guys that you are, and I'll go to you first, Mason, do you have a favorite kind of in those 2024 rookie running backs that you are still targeting, you know, going into this season?
100%. I will draft Isaac Guerendo everywhere I can get him. I don't have faith in Christian McCaffrey's calf, and if I'm going to bet against Christian McCaffrey, then I better be betting on Isaac Guerendo.
Love that. He's one of my most owned. It's one of those where he goes, I just can't stop clicking him. He like pops out off the screen when I'm drafting. My eyes just, you know, go bug-eyed. Dan, which one are your favorites when we're talking about second-year running backs?
Yeah, totally agree on Guerendo. You know, I know JD and I have been taking a lot of Guerendo anywhere that we can get him. One of my favorites, though, is Braylon Allen. I think he's got the potential for some standalone value there. If anything happens to Breece Hall, he's going to look real good. So, you know, it's an easy button to click because he goes so late. The one I'm probably a little bit more dubious about, and I might be on an island here, is I'm a little bit worried about Marshawn Lloyd. When I read what the coaches are saying about him, I keep seeing he's got to prove himself. He's got to prove himself, and, you know, various forms of that. And it just kind of reminds me of, you know, Kendra Miller and how he was being talked about by the New Orleans coaching staff. You know, and it's not like Emmanuel Wilson is just chopped liver either. I mean, that guy can play a little bit. So I'm a little Lloyd. I'm drafting him because I think he's going as if he's going to be the backup in Green Bay, and I don't think that's at all necessarily for sure yet. Again, this is somebody I can catch up on a little bit later in the summer, but for now, I don't see it. I want a little bit more clarity from that coaching staff. When I see those kind of faint praise type of comments, it just turns me off.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Marshawn. He's a guy I was going to bring up later on, but he's probably one of my most owned running backs right now. I just think, you know, looking at depth, Josh Jacobs, the amount of volume he took last year, that offense, I mean, they've got weapons. Let's face it. Maybe they haven't put it all together yet, but they've got weapons, and Jacobs crushed last year. So if he goes down, I just think Marshawn got hurt last year in the preseason. He had a hamstring strain. Then week 2, he had an ankle sprain. Then he had an appendicitis in week 11. Like, this guy could not get things going. He missed 10, 17 games last year. Like, he was just, he wasn't around for the whole season. So for a rookie to come into the NFL, especially a franchise like the Green Bay Packers, I just feel like he hasn't necessarily had an opportunity to show what he has. And I feel like if he can do that this preseason, going into the season, and really lock up that RB2, I think that again, if Jacobs, for, you know, knock on wood, gets injured, I think we could see a big Marshawn Lloyd season this year in that Packers backfield. So let's change gears here and let's look at the tight ends. I feel like tight ends this year, and I mean, maybe it's like this every year, but I feel like it's more about your builds and kind of how you're building a specific roster, or just what your approach is on the position versus like the actual players per se. So let's start at the top. I'll go to you again, Mason. Looking at that top tier with Bowers and McBride, and we've seen Kittle, really move up as well. I think he was starting off like in the 4th round. Now he's, I've seen him in the 2nd round even. Are those guys that you're picking off early when they're available? Are you waiting? Do you have kind of a part of the draft where you really start attacking the tight end position? Or are you like a late round type of guy where you'd rather just grab like a handful of them, at the back end of a draft? How are you approaching the tight end position this season?
Well, given that I normally play redraft and tournaments on FFPC, I would love more shares of Brock Bowers and Trey McBride, and George Kittle. But the way I structure a team, it's just so hard to fill that position in the first 3 rounds. It's hard for me to do that. I will if they fall to me in ADP, but golly, if I can get somebody like on drafters right now, I'm about 48 little mini drafters in. I'm at 51% David Njoku. I have 24 shares of David Njoku.
I laugh because that was me at the beginning of the off season on that exact platform. I just couldn't stop taking Njoku. Actually, on both platforms, on FFPC as well.
Every time I'm like, I should have a few more shares of Mark Andrews or Jonnu Smith or nope. David Njoku, every time he's pays off his ADP every year, and I'm so worried about all the receivers in Cleveland should Flacco ever lose his job to a rookie or Kenny Pickett. But I feel like Njoku's target share and production feels somewhat quarterback proof or safe. So I'm in on Njoku. But if I'm going to draft a tight end that late, I better handcuff him with somebody like Jake Ferguson or something later. If I decide to take Brock Bowers or Trey McBride or George Kittle, they will be my only rostered tight end, and I'll just stream from then on.
Dan, where are you at? You're a tight end guy. You like those tight end in the deeper rounds. How are you approaching it this season? You mixing it up, or do you have kind of a favorite range?
This is one of the few years where I can't say I have a favorite range, because to me, this is a little bit more of a sharpshooter year. You got Bowers, McBride, Kittle. I'm happy having any of them. I'm taking Brock Bowers as high as 3rd overall in the FFPC. McBride, I have no problem taking him anywhere in the back half of the 1st round. I mean, you do have to forego some really good wide receivers, but McBride could end up being the number 1 overall tight end, and if he does that, that's going to make it look good, even though you passed up on some really good receivers, because the odds are where you take McBride, you can probably get one of those receivers in the coming around in the 2nd round. Kittle kind of falls at a nice spot where if I don't get Bowers early, I might take a shot at Kittle. And then after that, give me a little bit of Hawkinson, a little bit of Andrews. I've taken a little bit of Njoku. After that, I'm probably dropping down to like Colston Loveland, Jake Ferguson, Pat Freiermuth. I take a lot of those guys. And then if I don't get them, I'm probably moving on down into the, really the bottom of the dumpster. Give me some Mason Taylor, give me some Cole Kmet, some Aronde Gadsden, Terrace Ferguson, all of them. So I'm not afraid to take some shots deep either.
I'm with Jimmy. Love me some Tucker Kraft. Last year, I had a lot of Tucker Kraft, and it definitely paid off. I still think he has room to grow in that offense. You mentioned a guy, Dan, right now that I was kind of arguing Harry Snowman sometimes in drafts about taking too much of this guy, but he's literally free in an offense that we all think is going to take a step forward this year with a new regime coming in. And for me, Cole Kmet is almost free money. When you hear Loveland still dealing with injury coming off the shoulder, I just think even if Loveland is, and I'm a huge Loveland guy, loved him. He was my favorite rookie coming in. I love where he landed. But I just think that Kmet, he's still able to forge a role there, and he's literally going in the last round of drafts right now. I just feel like that's a guy that it's the way I see the position is you really can't fuck it up. You know what I mean? Like, even if you wait too long or you like, no matter how you build your team, there's so much flexibility at the tight end position this year. And maybe it's because you've got now like, 4 or 5 or even 6 sometimes of these rookie tight ends that have come in and added, infused to the position. And I talked about this last show, how there's like a changing of the guard happening, but the guard hasn't necessarily left yet. Like the Kelceys are still there. The Kittles are still there. The Andrews are still there. And now you've got all these young guys coming in. Mason, do you have a favorite rookie tight end? I know this isn't on the show sheet, but do you have a favorite one out of these rookies that have come in this year?
100%. The New York Jets offensive coordinator was the passing game coordinator for the Lions. They really used Sam Laporta his rookie year and made him a rookie tight end number 1. I don't have enough guts to predict a tight end 1 from the New York Jets. However, you've got a guy who will use his tight end, and I like the buzz about Mason Taylor. I think he was awesome at LSU. There were defensive coaches from other teams that said he was one of the hardest players to scheme against. The reason he didn't have more notoriety is he was a tight end at one of the best wide receiver universities on the planet. So wide receivers come out of LSU, not tight ends. So I think Mason Taylor is a great tight end. I think he's got a great situation with his new offensive coordinator in New York Jets. And my only problem is I take David Njoku everywhere, and they have the same bye week.
See,
so now I got to take a third tight end
right there. You got to get some more Taylor in your life. That's about the long and short of it. I'm big on Taylor as well. He's my favorite rookie also, just because of where he's going in drafts. I think Loveland could be the guy in Chicago sooner than later. But Kmet is so cheap. I mean, why not gamble on him? But I'm going to also have me some Loveland. But, Mason Taylor just goes so darn cheap. And he really could be the best of the rookie tight ends this year.
Yeah, Loveland, Mason, and Terrence Ferguson are probably my 3 favorite out of the rookies. And Terrence, I thought, like, he's coming in pretty, like, a little young. I mean, Taylor is actually younger, but I just felt like maybe Terrence was coming in and he was more like a long-term plan. But hearing McShay talk about bringing him in for Stafford specifically, I think like Mason, we could see these young tight ends have roles earlier rather than later. Loveland, for me, it's really just the whole injury situation, how quickly he can get on the field and kind of learn the playbook and all that kind of stuff. But also the fact that they have a Cole Kmet there, who's a proven vet that can play the position. There's no need to rush him in, whereas the Jets literally have nothing. Like Conklin's gone. They've got G-Dubs, obviously, at receiver. They've got Breece Hall. You talk about narrow target trees, Dan. That's definitely a narrow one in New York.
Yep, and Fields doesn't mind throwing to his tight end either.
And we saw him with Kmet, right? I remember him and Kmet just blowing up in some of those games when they played together in Chicago. So that's actually a very, very good point, Dan. Let's go back to rookies on the receiving end here. I feel like rookies coming into the draft were a big topic. Obviously, the running back class, we all know is deep. There's a lot of talent there. But receivers were slowly more and more leading up to the NFL draft becoming topics of conversation. As we saw Golden move up, obviously Burden, you've got, Egbuka, wow, I'm going to mess up his name. Egbuka. Egbuka, that's it. Trey Harris was one of my favorite guys. I like where he landed. Jaden Higgins and Noel end up in Houston. Looking at the receiving conversation now, we don't hear that much conversation around the rookies, I find. I was reading an interesting article today. Dan, you might know about this, but I didn't know that second round rookies, the conversation isn't necessarily about how much money they're going to get paid, but how much of it is going to be guaranteed versus non-guaranteed. And that's why right now you see a lot of second round rookies that are not necessarily signed, actually the majority of them. But I'll go to you, Dan, first on this one. Who's your favorite rookie receiver? Are there, one or two that you are really targeting, that you really like where they landed and their situation when we're looking at best ball and redraft for 2025?
I'm not afraid to go straight to the top of the class and get McMillan. He's going as basically around wide receiver 23, 24, so back end wide receiver 2. He's on an ascendant offense. I think he's an excellent prospect. I think there's a very good chance we could be drafting him in the second round next year. So I'll take some McMillan all day long. And past that, Jaden Higgins is probably another one of my favorites. I think he's just sitting in a real good situation in Houston. I like the fact that they've got a new offensive coordinator there. Christian Kirk doesn't scare me at all. They don't play the same position anyway, but I think Higgins could probably do a pretty good imitation of what Stephon Diggs did last year. The coaching staff's been talking him up real big. And then the guy that I want to get more of, and I just kind of struggle to do it, is the Eggman, Emeka Egbuka, your favorite guy to pronounce there, JD. I think I think he is one of the best wide receivers in the class, and the only thing that's holding him back is the fact that we perceive that he's got too much competition. Again, I kind of go back to my dynasty roots and just say, when I see talent and I see a potential value or bargain with that talent, I'm probably going to take it. So I'm working on getting more Egbuka into my life.
Yeah, he's really grown on me. Just again, a little hesitant when he landed behind Godwin and Evans, but Evans is getting up there. Let's face it, he's like 33 now or something like that. As much as we love the talent and how consistent he's been, and I feel like, Dan, a lot of the times those situations, those are the guys that end up like kind of surpassing the vets a little quicker than we expecting. There is a guy that I cannot believe you didn't mention, Dan, because you and I have done a lot of rookie drafts together. And actually, Snowman mentioned him earlier, and I was trying to find his quote, but I cannot for the life of me find him. But I think you and I and Rob and myself own this guy probably more than anyone, and it's Pat Bryant in Denver. And again, just when you're looking at the depth chart, looking Sean Payton gush over him, comparisons to, I saw a comparison today of Marvin Harrison Jr. as a rookie. I saw comparison as Michael Thomas. Like, we've seen so many, positive takes on this guy, but he's still going later, third round ish in rookie drafts. I know Rob and I just took him, we jumped the line a bit and took him ahead of Kyle Williams even because we like him so much. But talk to me a bit about your love for Pat Bryant, because I know he's a guy that you like a lot, and then I'll go to Mason and talk more rookie receivers.
Yeah, I like Pat Bryant a lot. It's hard to say what he's going to do this year because there is a little bit of a logjam at wide receiver in Denver. But at the price he's going, it's pretty cheap to speculate. I think he might be one of those guys that you get, especially in redraft, where you have a choice and you can be dropping players where you might need to have some diamond hands to hold on to him for a few weeks and just let him develop. But on best ball teams, I really, really like him because you know what? I can't be tempted to drop him. So if he doesn't start performing in the first few weeks, so I like him there a lot. And we've all heard Sean Payton comparing him to Michael Thomas and all that. I don't know how much stock to put into that, but we do know that Sean Payton loves big wide receivers who can block, and Pat Bryant can do that, and he can catch a ball a little bit too. So I think he's a good bet, and he's dirt cheap.
Mason, who's your fave right now when talking rookie receivers, landing spots?
100% Jaden Higgins. Where he's going in the ADPs for big gorilla drafts right now, or main event drafts.
10th round.
He can be my wide receiver 5 all day long. You could say the same thing for Emeka Egbuka, but I feel more confident with Jaden Higgins' role with his team. Egbuka reminds me a little bit of rookie JSN. JSN his rookie year, I draft him everywhere I could in Dynasty. I had 0 shares in redraft. Tyler Lockett was still too good that year. There was no way that Geno Smith was going to throw enough balls for JSN to be relevant his rookie year. A lot of people argued with me, but I was right. Now, what Egbuka has the benefit, while the situation looks similar, Godwin may not be healthy. So if he gets his foot in the door in the first 4 games, Godwin's comes back, who knows, Mike Evans is over the hill. Maybe he gets hurt. So I feel like there's a lot more upside for Egbuka than there was for JSN his rookie year, but it's still a question mark. It's still a question of, will he have a role in a crowded room where there's more established veterans who are all pro caliber receivers? So I love Jaden Higgins. The rest of the rookies, Ted McMillan, for whatever reasons, I just think he's the best of the overall rookie wide receiver class has a down year, dynasty speaking, I think. The rookie running back class was all the rave. And I think Ted was just the best of a down class, and it worries me a little bit.
Oh, we lost you, brother. All right.
Hopefully
there he is.
There he is.
You're back.
Am I back?
You're back.
Yep.
Okay. When Dan says that he loves Ted, he could be a second-round receiver next year, absolutely, I see that possibility, but something scares me this year, so I've just been kind of avoiding all the rookie receivers pretty much except Jaden Higgins. I'll make an exception for Egbuka, though, if Higgins is off the board.
Yeah, and Tet's he's not cheap. You know, when you're looking, I'm trying to find him here on the he's 5th round, just beginning at the 4-5 turn in rookie drafts. There was a question on Travis Hunter. Dan, I'll go to you first. Where are you on Travis Hunter? Do you think he plays enough offense this year to be relevant fantasy wise? Do you think he's worth his ADP right now in the back end of the 5th?
Yeah, so let me just address Tet real quick. I'll push Tet up into the early part of the 4th round. I don't have any problem doing that. I think he's just that good, and I may be right, I may be wrong, but he's a guy I feel really, really good about drafting, and I think he's going to be the number 1 receiver in that offense real quick. So love him. Travis Hunter is the guy. And also, Dan, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off,
but also who else is there to, kind of like Mason is saying in this class, he's the best of a maybe down your class. Who's really fighting for targets there, other than obviously your buddy, the cokehead, Jalen Coker? But who else is really there to take that role? So if he can, live up to he's gonna get peppered out there in that offense in Carolina.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, they're saying that Xavier Legette has made some nice strides this year, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Tet still can't be the the main cog in that passing offense. There's really not a tight end of note. Adam Thielen is he's about as smart as they come, but he is old as dirt. He's about the same age as Travis Kelce, and wide receivers don't age near as well as tight ends. So, I just like the setup for Tet. But Travis Hunter, I think it's a little bit interesting how he got, nobody was taking him, and now everybody's taking him. And, when you hear the coaching staff talk, what they're saying is, yeah, we put him on offense a lot during mini camp and rookie mini camp, all that kind of stuff, because that's where we felt like he needed the work. That's the harder part for him to pick up, so that's where they were putting him a lot. They were saying that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be playing there as much as he was practicing there early on. And so I think that's kind of instructive. It's a reason to tap the brakes a little bit. But on the other hand, man, I do think he is the most talented wide receiver in the class. If he gets 75% snap share or something like that on offense, he's easily going to pay off his price. But again, you could be looking at a guy who's getting 40-50% snap share pretty easily, and they might say, you know what, we're gonna have you on defense and we'll put you in on offense sometimes. I mean, I do think when he's on offense he'll probably get targeted a fair amount, but he's a guy who I'm scared not to have any of, but also I don't want to get too out over my skis on him, I guess.
Before we go to the last topic here, Snowman's got an interesting question, and we were talking about this in our last draft. The Buffalo Bills receiving room right now is not a hot topic of discussion. Obviously, they've got Keon Coleman coming back. They've got Shakir, who they just signed, locked up for kind of long term. And he's a guy that's grown on me. But other than that, I mean, you're not really hearing much about who's the Canadian kid they have there that they brought in from the Chargers. Man, I'm blanking. What's his name?
Palmer.
Josh Palmer.
Palmer, that's it. Josh Palmer. Like, where are you guys on this receiving core in Buffalo? You got to think somebody's got to be catching the ball from Allen. Mason, are you in on Kincaid a lot? Where are you at with this Buffalo offense, specifically the receiving game?
I like Khalil Shakir. He's I think Khalil Shakir, I think, is in a position to be the top target earner and the most trusted guy to throw the ball to in the red zone. And I can get him as my wide receiver 4. The rest I will grab if I can get an ADP value. I don't dislike Keon Coleman. If Dalton Kincaid keeps dipping and dipping and dipping, I'll buy the dip. But give me all the Khalil Shakir I can get right now.
Dan, how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, Buffalo is kind of interesting. I think they're kind of the AFC East version of Green Bay. So many wide receivers, hard to say exactly who the ball's going to. So that's the tough thing about it. I mean, Shakir is probably the most interesting one. But on the other hand, I think there's just, there's not a ton of upside there either. I mean, I think if he does real well, he finishes as a back end wide receiver 2, and you're not mad about that at all. But there are some players going around where Shakir is that I think are, a little bit more interesting upside bets. So I'm usually taking them, or I'm going running back, or, maybe I'm taking my quarterback or tight end there. There are a lot of things going on around where Shakir is going where I just haven't been hitting the button on him that much because I just can't find a really compelling case for him. As far as late round dart throws, I don't mind Keon Coleman at all. Also don't mind Elijah Moore. He's a guy who finally came on with Cleveland. I mean, Elijah Moore has had some of the ultimate run bad as far as wide receivers go, for quarterback situations and coaching staff situations and everything else. He just has not been in very good situations. So he's very excited to be playing with Josh Allen. I'm excited for him to be playing with Josh Allen, and the price is cheap, so he's an easy one to hit late round. Kincaid, I'm going to say this. I was listening to a different podcast a couple weeks ago, and a guy was saying, you know what? Sometimes when you're going for a unicorn, you get a horse, and that's kind of the case with Kincaid, I think, a little bit. So I think he's really just kind of a horse and not a unicorn. And the only time he's really done well is when Dawson Knox has been out of the lineup. So I guess I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, I think that the red zone is kind of the hard thing for me with these receivers, because obviously James Cook had a huge season last year, 18 touchdowns or whatever it was. Allen's going to get his share of the touchdowns. And then even if you think Kincaid is taking that step forward, I mean, Shakir last year, he was red zone targets. He only had 10 with 9 receptions, wide receiver 44 at that specific stat. So in that part of the field. So I think it's hard to kind of really want to invest a lot in those receivers. But if anyone's going to do it now that they locked it up, it's, you got to think it's Shakir. 1912 said something interesting. A guy I keep drafting, especially later in drafts, is Keenan Allen. And I mean, that would be nice to see him in Buffalo, that would be, I mean, that would make my Keenan Allen bag super happy because of everything we just talked about. And we saw Allen in Chicago last year, you know, in a not so narrow target tree, really command some targets in a few games there where he really put up some good numbers. So I think that I'm screaming in the top of my lungs saying like Jets, Bills, like somebody's got to sign him. You know what I mean? Pittsburgh.
Aaron Rodgers with Keenan Allen working the short areas of the field. Good God.
Yeah. There's a few offenses that could use a guy like Keenan Allen. I mean, I don't know if they're going to wait till the 9th hour or what the situation is, but he's definitely a guy that I find right now is fun to draft, especially as your wide receiver, like 6'7", you know, with all those opportunities out there. So let's get to our last topic. Let's talk quarterbacks. I think similar to the tight end position, maybe not as girthy, you know, in the middle of the draft, but because of the depth and the amount of guys that are going in the last third of drafts, it's a very forgiving position. You know, you could really wait at the position, or you can, you know, kind of take that stud early and then build your stacks and that kind of thing, depending on whether it's best ball or redraft. But Mason, how are you approaching the quarterback position this year, and who are maybe some of your favorites or someone that you're avoiding at the position?
I think it's half and half of all the redraft teams. I'll usually manage anywhere from 20 to 30 teams between dynasty and redraft. If I'm managing 20 redraft teams, I'll probably draft half of them where I have one of the 5 elite quarterbacks. And I think Burrow is the only one that, you know, doesn't work with his legs that belongs in that tier, but he does belong. Hurts, Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. I want a piece of that pie, but the other half of the time, I just want to build it to where, look, there's a lot of value. You know, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, Bo Nix, Caleb Williams with Ben Johnson as his coordinator. Baker Mayfield he could be a stud. Justin Fields with the New York Jets. Like, there's a lot of guys down there that can really hit that you can get that value on. Now, I don't want to just punt those top 5 guys. So I'm going to do it half and half. I'm not afraid to step up to the plate and get one of the elite quarterbacks. But if somebody wants to snipe me from them, I'm very, very happy to load up on wide receivers and running backs and get a great value at quarterback. I think it's a great year for the position. It's hard to have a take on how to work the quarterbacks and get it wrong this year.
Yeah, I think, Dan, for me, it's just like if I pick up like a Henry early, and Lamar falls to me, I'll, you know, take Lamar. If I've got A.J. Brown and Hurts falls to me, I find Hurts is a really nice price. I put him in that top tier. So I think, like, depending on how the draft goes, and especially best ball, if I'm going to be stacking and it kind of works, then I'm, you know, leaning towards those top end guys. How are you approaching the position this year?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, I think Mason was right on. You know, especially in managed leagues, there is a lot of appeal to being able to have a quarterback who's going to score you 25 to 30 points every week and being able to just drop him in your lineup. It is a huge advantage. You are missing out on probably a pretty good, you know, tight end, running back, wide receiver, whatever it might be. But on the other hand, you know, you're at the point where we start seeing misses at those positions, and you're talking about taking a very elite quarterback who is short of injury, definitely not going to be a miss. So in a way, it's kind of the safest pick you can make. You know, and a lot of these guys that are going around those places just don't have the upside, you know, like say a Terry McLaurin. You know, I don't know how he gets much better than what he did last year. He can maybe get a little bit better, but he's not going to be, you know, like a top 6 wide receiver or anything like that. But, you know, you might be giving up on Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, somebody like that, and that just doesn't make any sense to me. Same thing, you know, Mike Evans. You know, you might be able to get Jalen Hurts or Joe Burrow around where you got Evans. You know, so the value there is pretty compelling. But then when you get into best ball, you know, being able to get that extra good position player and then you can dive deep at quarterback and you can pick up like 2 or 3 late round guys and really make that work out because, you get yourself like Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, J.J. McCarthy, maybe even Trevor Lawrence, Bryce Young. There's a lot of really, really cheap options, and you can cobble together better in best ball because you don't have to pick the big weeks. They pick you. So that works out pretty good. The one quarterback I need to be drafting, and I'm not, and I got to figure out why and start doing it, is Patrick Mahomes, because he's going way after the top 5 quarterbacks. He's going closer to Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, and Bo Nix. And I'll tell you what, Patrick Mahomes still has that elite upside to be a number 1 overall quarterback. So I got to find a way to get more Pat Mahomes.
Maybe schedule, Dan, is something to fear when it comes to Pat Mahomes. Much as I think they're going to throw the ball more and the offense might be a little different this year, you do have to kind of look at the schedule when it comes to these quarterbacks, especially when you're investing at certain value. The one thing I'll say when you're talking about those top end guys is, especially like in a redraft tournament, it does allow you to maybe forego a second quarterback or a third, and it allows you to add a bit more depth at another position. So that is a plus, even though you're passing on guys. And you talked about that round with McLaurin. You see guys like Mike Evans there. There's guys that are maybe not guys that you want to be heavily invested in this season. So it does kind of make it a little more forgiving to go at the quarterback in that range. Do you have anything to add, Mason, with this conversation in the quarterback position?
No, kind of echoing what Dan said is, if I draft one of the elites, I'm not drafting anybody to handcuff Lamar Jackson. But if I punt that, if my number 1 quarterback is Justin Fields, then I'm probably going to pick up Trevor Lawrence in the 15th round, or maybe a Jordan Love, because I just don't have enough faith that he's going to be that elite. I want to throw an extra dart that somebody might hit at quarterback, because what I really want in redraft is I want a guy that I feel good that might really go off in the last half of the season around playoff times. I want to go after $1 million winner, and I want to feel like, well, between Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, one of them could really have a huge week 16 or 17.
Yeah, I think, and that's one thing that I find is if you do go kind of like your QB2 this year is like really nice. I feel like there's like the guys in round 13 to 15, like the Drake Mays, the CJ Stroud, the JJ McCarthy, the Trevor Lawrences, like the Jordan Loves, like these guys, we were paying way more for a lot of these guys last season. And that's what I find is like my QB2 either looks really nice, or I waited really late and now I can grab 2 or 3 of these later guys, and I'm for sure going to be able to play matchups and still get kind of QB1 production, even though I didn't invest highly with one of those top guys. Guys, this has been great. We're at $1.18, so not too bad. We didn't go like full 120, for the week 2 of the GOAT District's return, the reboot. I like to call it.
We're just warming up right now.
We're just warming up. And let's, guys, you guys in the chat have been awesome tonight. Like, I appreciate all of you guys. Obviously, Harry Snowman, Joe King's in the house. We've got Peanut Punch, 1912. We've got Jimmy D. Vergioli. I for sure messed that up, but I tried to make it sound really cool there. But we appreciate all you guys. Sports Betting Man is in the house. He's a guy in the high stakes streets for sure that we love interacting with out there in the X world. And you guys have been awesome tonight. Make sure you smash the like button, the subscribe button. Mason, let the people know where they can follow you. Obviously, I've got your handle on there. Is there anything else you want to add to @Mason Spain on the X machine? It's been great having you, by the way.
Now, if you want to follow me, I'm on the X at Mason Spain. Otherwise, you'll have to catch me in the draft rooms pretty much. I don't do a whole lot of other social media. But I'm on the X all the time. I love talking fantasy football. So this has been a real treat to talk on the GOAT District. Dan, tell the peeps what you have coming up in the next few days, few weeks, and where the people can find you.
Yeah, so got a lot of podcasts going this week, as it turns out. I got Stack Hunters tomorrow night with Bradley Stalder, and then JD and I are going to hop on with Joe Carlton on his podcast tomorrow night right after that, so looking forward to that. And then I'm going to be on with Balky on Thursday night on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, so that will be fun as well. And trying to work on some articles in between drafting and getting ready for the next vacation, all that good stuff. So you can find my articles over on Player Profiler.
Nice. Make sure you check him out. He's at Overhyped Sleeper, no E on the end. And we're lining up the guests, guys. Like, we've got a serious roster coming up. We've got guys like John Lobb, Scott Connor, Abib, the back-to-back champ, Mike Shopes, and so much more coming at you in the next few weeks. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're pressing that like button to support the channel, and drop the comments. Like, you guys are great in the live chat for sure, but if you're watching this later on, just a little comment, after you're watching or while you're watching, if there's a player you want to throw in that you're targeting or avoiding, we want to hear all of that. If you like something we said or don't like something we said, we're big boys. We can handle it. We don't mind it. We appreciate any kind of support. Make sure you use the code DRBALLER. That's DRBALLER at myffpc.com. If you're not already signed up, that'll give you $25 off your first team. And check out the the show description. I've got a promo code and a promo deal for you guys for the Player Profiler All-In Kit, as well as if you're doing content, the software that I use, Ecamm Live, you've got a promo code as well on there that'll help you get a huge discount. So we appreciate you guys joining us tonight. Hopefully you got something out of it. We want to help you guys be the best fantasy players you can and win yourself lots of cash in 2025. So make sure you tune in, and we'll check you all later.
Go district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text. That trash offers the best. You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the and I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.